Now, my brain was completely fuzzled after that last pitch. I don't even think I can remember who I am, but hopefully I'm not going to be speaking too much like gobbledygook to you. So, one change, this isn't Ian. Ian, who's meant to be with us today,
I'm so sorry for not having
no, that was us. No, that was us. Ian, who's meant to be doing a lot of this talk today, unfortunately has got caught up with a business transaction that he's working on for us. So Talitha was here anyway, so we're standing in and we're just sort of changing roles slightly. A lot of you won't know us. I've met one or two of you before, but who are MPA and why are we here and why is it relevant to you? So it says starting from the beginning to your exit, but most of that, the thing that holds most people up is funding. So we're going to talk a lot around what are the options for funding, how to think about it and when to think about it. Most people think that funding starts with your pitch deck, but actually it starts way earlier than that. It normally starts when you realise that that product you're working on is really good and you want to get it out there. All of a sudden, you've got to start speaking to people who aren't techie, who maybe don't understand what you're trying to do or what your product is. And that's where you start to need help because you're starting to have conversations that you're uncomfortable with. You're starting to talk about people, processes, money, all of those sort of things. It's not that your tech isn't any good, it's the fact that you've got to start explaining it to other people. Now, at MPA, we don't give you funds. I don't do that many introductions to investors, but what we do is make sure that you're ready for that journey. And it's all about starting early, building that right foundation. So when you get to fundraising, it's actually that step forward for you. It's not that reactive, oh, I've got to do something now. I don't know where to start. If I don't do it now, I'm going to lose the market opportunity. It's about making sure that businesses are ready. Now, Talitha and I spend days upon days of speaking to people, speaking to early stage founders, having those conversations with them around thinking about their funding, making them comfortable thinking about cash flow, valuation, share splits, IP, business structure, all of those sort of things that if you can get all of those ironed out and understood early, you're going to be ready for when those opportunities come along. And fundraising is a little bit like dating. It's all about matching up the right people together at the right time. So we're going to take you through some of that now. And hopefully that when you're ready to speak to an investor, that you realise that the investor isn't just investing in your product and idea, they're investing in the clarity that you give over, having the correct numbers, having an understanding of your vision and who you are, and they want to make sure that you've got a foundation in place that isn't going to sort of crumble away in 6 months' time. So that's what we're going to look at today. Sorry, I just waffle on. You can do the next, take me through the next slide. Or you might want to just do it on the, yeah. So that's who we are, don't worry about the pictures. So in an ideal world, this would be your typical funding model. You start up early, you're bootstrapping. Be really interested to understand, are any of you now bootstrapping a product? Excellent, so a few of you. Any of you raised money already, things like EIS, SEIS? Anybody planning to in the next 12 months? A few hands there, great. So you start off bootstrapping. I speak to people who've got part-time jobs, doing it on the side while they're still employed, maybe borrowing money from friends and family to get it to a certain place. Then you realise this is going to be good, I do need some extra help. It'd be ideal if this was completely linear and it worked in this way, but it doesn't. It sort of goes around in circles and backwards and forwards and everywhere. You may think, well, actually, I need to go and get some funding. It could be grants, innovation grants, it could be local enterprise grants or growth hub type grants, or you may look at going out to get some investment, some angel investors. You're a risk because you're really early stage. You're most probably at minimum viable product stage, maybe just sort of getting into some sort of prototyping, but you are a risk. So you need to do something that de-risks that investment for those angel investors. And there's things out there called EIS, SEIS, I'm going to take them through them in a minute, that make you attractive to investors. So you're going to go out there and you're going to get some investing. I know some people have done it really successfully with crowdfunding. That sort of thing is really important if you also learn how to market yourself cheaply and get other people involved in what you're doing. So we can look at those sort of things. Some people then will go into bigger investments or take advantage of, they're called non-diluted funding, so things you don't give shares away for. So that could be grants. Again, it could be R&D tax credits when you're starting to spend money out on maybe subcontractors or employees. There's loans, there's innovate loans when you're starting to go past development stage and just starting to go into commercialization. So different things that you can do. Or there's proper VC, PE type backing as well. One of the important things that you need to understand when you're starting out, when you're at this stage, you need to know what your exit is going to look like. Are you planning on taking this to a business and scaling up and employing loads of people and carrying on developing? Do you know if you're going to sell it to somebody, who that buyer is? Because that decision will affect that path and that journey that you're on. And the amount of people I've spoken to who've gone down one path with not knowing what their exit is going to be, and then realise that they've made some wrong decisions. They've got themselves in maybe with an investor and the exit, they're not aligned. So making sure that you understand what your end game is really, really important.
So Sam, what are some of the most common mistakes you see people making when they start this journey and then maybe move across slightly?
I think one of the things that you've got to think about is how you're going to commercialise it and who's going to buy it. And a lot of times I speak to people that come to me, I want money, I want this, I want that. Well, who's your market? Well, it could be anybody. That isn't scalable to an investor. They don't know who their core market is. They don't know who the early adopters are going to be. That's the sort of thing that you really need to understand up there early. You can't just have this massive, well, everybody needs an iPhone or, it needs a smartphone. Well, who is yours aimed at and why? What price bracket? Why are they coming for it? So I think understanding that early is really, really important for that journey.
And then when it comes to the amount that you need to raise, how specific do you need to be and how much do you need to know for each step that you're going to take? And again, with how you're going to spend it as well. You're
going to know exactly. So one of the things we'd look at is EIS and SEIS. So when you're going out for angel investments, they want to know your full plans for your money. Anything you do, grants, investment, anything, they want to know how much do you need to get your product to the next level? How much do you need to commercialize it? So you need to understand that. How are you going to spend it? Is really important. And just say, well, I just need enough now to get me to the next stage. Well, why am I going to give you any money just to give you to one stage when you don't know how to get to the next stage? So again, that is really important. You really need to understand what the whole process is likely to cost. I mean, like anything, it changes, but you've got to have that sort of mapped out and understood.
And when it comes to thinking ahead in terms of your team and people, how far ahead should you be planning?
It depends on what you're going for. So if you're going for a grant, they will want to know who your team is. They will want to know who is going to do the work, and grants are available at a certain period of time that you've got to spend the money in. So are you going to use subcontractors? Are they going to be available? Are you employing? Do you know who you're employing? So everybody wants to know the team that you're building around yourselves. And again, that will vary at different levels. Angel investors will most probably invest in you as a person because they get you. They like your idea. It's something that they're interested in. So they're a lot more personable. But again, they know there's going to be a risk. I think 1 in 10 of investments they will actually make some money on. But they still need to try to mitigate that risk. So they still need to understand what else is it besides you. So I've talked about risk. Do you want to go into EIS, SEIS? You're a risk at that early stage. You've got a minimum viable product. You're out there. You need a few £100,000. You want somebody to invest in you, but you are a risk. There is no track record. We don't know where it's going. So you can get something called Seed Enterprise Investment Scheme or Enterprise Investment Scheme. You don't necessarily need to worry at this stage which one of these you fit in. That's when you work with a good advisor and they'd give you the right advice depending on your age of your business, how much you need to borrow, how quickly or how much you need to have invested in you and how quickly you need it. But what you need to do is you need to get advanced assurance for this. And what this does, it says to an investor, I can invest in your company because if I invest in you, I'm going to get a tax break. So I'm going to get a return on my money regardless to what happens to your business. Therefore, you become attractive. So I'm going to take that risk because some of that risk is mitigated. But what you have to do is you have to apply for that advance. Once you've got that, investors will speak to you. They'll then want a certification, once they've invested money in you, that they can then use on their tax claim. So it's really, really important that when you fill out this form for advance assurance, which wants to know what does your product do, what's the benefit of it, who's your target market, what do you need the money for, how are you going to spend it? It needs to know all that in advance, that is done correctly. Because I've worked with people who've come to us and they've said, help, I've gone out and got advanced assurance on my own. I've got some investment, but I now can't get the certification for my investors. And they're getting pretty peeved with me because they've given me money. They want it back because they're not getting any tax breaks on it. Because when they've put the certification through, they're looking at what they're spending the money on. It's not matching up to what they've originally put their advanced assurance in for. So it's really, really important to get that right. But that is your first link in. Also, those investors quite often will help you open the door, help you with your business issues, put you in contact with the right people. Sometimes they stay on board for a long time, may eventually become part of your board, non-exec directors. They will give you help and advice as well, help you along that way. Most of them are serial entrepreneurs. There's a whole network of them around here. If you're thinking at any stage that you want to go out and get investment, get into their circle quickly because you need to be making sure that you're finding the right people that understand you. They don't need to be techie, but they need to understand what you're trying to achieve, what your product is going to give to somebody else. So you need to have start those relationships early. It can take quite a while to build up the right sort of network and find the right sort of investor.
Is there anywhere that you would suggest people look when they're starting to try to build these relationships? Because I think sometimes people think they've got SEIS, they've got EIS, they've got the product, and they just need to meet the investor. And I think sometimes they underestimate how much work goes into that.
I think there's a couple of things. I think what you can do to make yourself and your idea public is really good as well. So if you can do some sort of low-key marketing, talking about it in the right circles, that horrible social media that we should all not be using.
I knew that someone
so what you're doing is getting out there and the benefit of it. Then there's Central Arc Angels. They're based over in Milton Keynes, but they cover this whole area. There's the South Midlands Growth Hub. So that's like a local enterprise partnership, but again, they have really, really good connections in with people. Accelerator programs, there's one run out of here. Again, they help you with your pitching, the right sort of information, and again, they have the right sort of contacts. But I would start early, would be my advice. Now, this is everything, here's tech. You don't need to have a tech investor. You need to have an investor that you can relate to, and they understand. I always talk to people about your why. They understand your why and why you're doing something, and they get you. They don't have to get the tech. That is really, really important at your stage that you're at. How long are we talking for?
So I was going to say as well, there are some really good events and opportunities where you can pitch as well. There's events in London, pitch nights. I think Central Archangels do some pitch events. So it can be really helpful, even if you're not guaranteed to get investment at the event, to practice the way you present what you're building and communicate what you're doing and get that kind of immediate feedback from an audience and watch people's expressions. All of that is, yeah.
Or come up here and stand up here and talk about what you're doing to everybody else. Because it is, people buy your story. I do a lot of grant work with people, as well as EIS applications, and as well as sort of helping people understand their pitch deck. It is a story. It is you. Now, your coding didn't actually, you were really passionate about your coding. I had no idea what you were doing, but that passion is contagious. And that's what people believe in, is your passion and your conviction around what you're doing. So being able to articulate that, which can't always be easy. I mean, I spent my whole life standing up and talking. I suppose most of you spend it, on your keyboard and with all this stuff that you were doing over there. But learning how to talk about what you're doing so other people can understand it is really, really important as well. Partnering up with other people, talk to some people about, well, actually, what can I do next? Well, maybe find a partner that can help you. Maybe have a partner that has more of those soft skills that can go out. I don't know if any of you watch Dragon's Den, but there's quite often a couple of people there. Either one person that understands the numbers. That is also really important, to understand your numbers and your models and your pricing structure and how much you need to sell to make a profit and how much, to scale. All of that sort of thing is really important as well. So make sure you've got some support and some network. But yeah, get out of your comfort zone and pitch.
And is there anything else you'd say that is important to take into account when you are looking at investors individually, or you might have some interest? Is there anything people should be looking at from a business perspective? So
there's different types of investors. That early stage investor who will put their own money in, it's normally smaller amounts. They're doing it because they get a tax return, and they're doing it because they most probably like to support businesses. You're not going to usually have a long-term relationship with them. There's normally sort of a quick turnaround of exit. Some people may get involved with you for longer, but finding the right fit is really important. When you get to the next stage and you're going out maybe for Series A funding, you're going to work for a venture capitalist, some sort of private equity firm, that is so important to get the right people. Lots of people think that they're vetting you and you should accept whatever they offer, but it's really important that you vet them, because they're going to be working with you for a long time. They're going to have some control over your business. If they don't get you, they can have a different idea. They're going to want you to report in figures. They might want to put one of their team in. They're looking for a really quick and high yield return on their investment. So they're going to want to ramp it up. If yours isn't going to be a quick ramp up business, you don't want to, maybe there's some social economics or social side to your business or whatever you're doing, just make sure you get the right person and make sure you vet them just as much as they vet you. It is like a relationship, it is like a marriage. And I think a marriage is sometimes easier to get out of than it is with Yeah, so be really, really careful from that. I've had horror stories. There's nobody here that's invested, because we've done a couple of these before when other people have invested, and I normally get them to come up, and the biggest red flags are the issues that they've had, getting in thinking that this is my only opportunity to get some money, I'm going to take it, and then realise they were in with the wrong person.
I think one thing we haven't covered as much is grant funding. I didn't know if there's anything you wanted to say about, because that's quite a big step for some.
It is, and it may be one of the easiest steps to take for grant funding. You've got to make sure, though, for grant funding that you are doing something that is advancing science and technology, and most probably fits into the government's industrial strategy. And that is based around where they think the UK economy will grow the most. And now I can't remember what it is. Well-being, quantum computing, sustainability. Can't remember the rest. But if anybody wants it, I can look it up and tell you. I told you my mind was frazzled from number over that, and yeah, I can't remember all. So, but what they're wanting to do is they're wanting to invest our tax money into a business that's going to have the right return for the UK economy. They want to make sure that you know how you're going to commercialise and that you have a really good understanding of your numbers. So going for a grant is very similar what you need to do when you're going out for investment. They want all of that detail around your marketplace. Who are you targeting? How are you targeting it? How much money do you need? How are you going to spend it? How are you going to take it from a prototype to commercialisation? Who's interested in buying it or supporting that commercialisation? There were grants out there until last year called Innovate Smart Grants, and they were open competition, and anybody who was doing something within technology could apply for them. They became extremely competitive. Loads of people were going for them, and only a few people were actually succeeding. So they pulled those. If you're doing something that is a tech that's going to go into medtech, fintech, transportation, anything like that, look at grants. But you're looking to spend somewhere between 200,000 to a couple of million. If you're working with a education, if you're working in cohorts with a university, you have a better chance with a grant as well. There are smaller grants, so we're quite lucky here that the British Business Bank invests money into South Midlands Growth Hub. The Growth Hubs can decide how they spend that money. This local one, investing it back into business. So they're currently running a couple of grants available out there at the moment. A lot of grants require you to have match funding. So the one grant's up to £50,000. But you have to, if you want £50,000 from them, you have to have £50,000 for that project as well. So it's a £100,000 project. They want you to have half the money, you have half the money. They need you to demonstrate that you've got the money. Innovate grants can be similar, but at that startup early stage, they'll give you 70% of the project money, and you've got to prove that you've got the other 30% of it. So you still need to be at a certain stage, and you still need to have had some money available to even access a grant. But quite often a grant will then give you to the next stage that you can get to get investment. So you use a grant when nobody else will invest in you. But if anybody's looking at any form of grants or anything like that, I'm more than happy to have a conversation and a guideline. Though I get about 10 inquiries a week for a grant, and I send most of them away because I said I can take your money off you to do a grant application, but you're very unlikely to succeed because you maybe don't have the match funding. You're maybe going into a very, very competitive market. You don't fit into the industrial strategy, or you don't have enough of a business understanding your business plan and where you're going. So yeah, let's not just apply for any of them because it is very, very competitive.
Okay, thanks.
Any questions? And can you ask them to Talitha so she can talk? There's one right at the back. Right. Yeah, I mean, there's an accelerator program run out of here as well through Barclays. But there's a lot of those sort of entrepreneurial hubs or accelerator programs. They give lots of training. As I say, they open the doors to some people. I mentor at the NatWest one, and I do quite a lot of stuff around the finance side on them. We do some over in Cambridge as well. They are a really good way. And the other thing is you're going to be meeting like-minded people. Did you find that you made some really good connections? Yeah, they're really good to do and get involved in.
I've got a couple of questions here. First question is, if I have a solution and an idea, but it's not inside of the UK, let's say the solution is tailored for the demography outside of the UK, can I still get funded for it from the UK?
Grants. So where would the work be done? Where will you be paying people? So sometimes the grants will be specific that you employ people in the UK and the money is spent in the UK, but it doesn't matter if it's solving a problem elsewhere. So that's fine. And again, with investors, so if you're looking at angel investors, it will be down to the fact if they like the idea and what you're doing, then they will invest in you. But they will also be wanting to make sure that the costs and the revenue is coming into the UK. But yeah, where you're solving the problem shouldn't be a problem.
Next question, how do you evaluate the amount you request for your raise?
How do you decide how much you need?
How do you evaluate this is the amount I need?
So at some point it'll be down to the market valuation, but at the early stage it's going to be down to what you need and what you believe your valuation will be or what you believe your revenues will be at certain stages. So you've got to understand, what do I need to get, how much is it going to cost to get my product from this stage to the next stage? So I'm working with a client at the moment where we've done most of it through grants. They're in the space sector, so there's some really good grants for them. They now need to raise 400,000, which they want to do before end of April because it's a tax year, and the SEIS grants, you can raise certain amounts in a year. So they've had to work out, what do I need to spend on that? But they also need to know that by the end of this financial year, they need to have had £2 million in total. This calendar year, they need £2 million in total. So it's about working out exactly what you want to spend. Don't reduce the number thinking I'll get easier money if I've got that, because people will realise that isn't enough to get you to where you think you need to go. So yeah, work out what it's going to cost you, and that's what you go for.
Final question. Do I get taxed on grants?
Do you get taxed on grants? No.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. You stipulated that exit is planning on exit and vision on exit is really important from the very beginning. This is something that get missed out through the whole process. And if we, let's say, talking about like potential mergers and acquisitions and you're going big, apart from strategic planning, is there anything you would advise that could be incorporated into that process and the journey that you're going on in order for that to happen?
Yes. I think with the people that we work with, I think one of the most important things, and it sort of goes to what was said at the back, have advisors around you. And so it doesn't have to be advisors that you pay for. Have other people who've done it so you can understand the journey that they've gone on and learn a bit from them as well. And you're going to be so focused on what you're doing in that moment when you've also got to be 2 or 3 steps ahead all the time. So you need you need people around you that can keep prodding you. You've got to be thinking about this bit now. You're in the trenches here, but if you don't have this bit done, you're not going to get to the next stage. It's going to hold you back. And you can't think of that when you're in the middle of everything else that you're doing. You've got all those plates spinning and everything. So my advice is have an understanding of where your journey is, but have other people around you that are going to just prod you and keep you going in the right area.
I think also thinking about who you might sell to is really important, because we've had clients in the past who have been doing something that's very like impact led in the medical sector. And when they've looked to exit, there are kind of bigger companies that are going to buy them to maybe squash what they're doing, or you change the application of what they're building. And if they've gone into something and it's all about impact, then that kind of exit isn't going to work for them. So I think also understanding your options and the motivations of those people who might buy is really important.
Aligns with your values.
Right, yeah. And protecting your people as well, if you want to keep job security for the team. If you raise in certain ways or sell, the buyer might get rid of half of the team, or
That's important, yeah.
Kind of tax incentives are there for the investors to invest? Is it the SEA? Are those programs or are projects?
Yeah, so the enterprise investment schemes offer tax incentives for the investors.
But is this from the government?
Yes, so it's from the government. So it's around the government sort of making it easier for other people to invest in that early stage businesses. So yes, they're putting their money in there, but some of that money is secured or ring fenced because they're going to get tax savings on it.
Is this for innovation or?
Yes, so EIS, SEIS tends to be for innovative type of businesses. If you're doing anything which you won't be here in energy or fuels, it's not included in that. But yes, most things innovation-led will come under EIS, SEIS. If you are spending money on development and you are either paying your salary if you're doing the work yourself, or you're paying for subcontractors, you could also may be eligible to claim R&D tax credits if you're doing anything that's advanced in science and technology. And that's taking a proportion of what you're spending on R&D. Not all development is R&D. They would expect some development to be known. So those things where you're advancing or solving complex uncertainties, you can claim R&D tax credits. And at the moment, that equates to about 15% of what you've spent can come back to you. And if you're at a startup stage and you're not paying any tax, that comes back to you as cash in the business. So that's the only tax incentive for the business itself. But the rest of it's for the investors.
I wonder if you could talk to like some of the relative trade-offs between grants and like outside investment, I guess, and like what are the characteristics? Because it seems like you could kind of use them interchangeably, or like use them more on one side than the other.
Yes, and I would, at that beginning, I would look at what are your funding options and when can you use each type of funding. I wouldn't rule out one type of funding, and it depends where you're at. So if you're doing something that would fit into a grant at that early stage, that MVP to prototype stage, TRL 3 to 6, I would look at if there's a grant available to you.
And because a kind of sub-question to that is like, can you find yourself fitting into a grant? Can you like adapt to particular grants, or is that?
Yeah, so I had a client the other recently. It was a Meditech client. They wanted to go for a certain grant because there was there was a private investor in there as well who was their client. They were trying to go for this grant, but they needed to have a partner in it. So they were trying to shoehorn themselves into that grant. But what we actually found was another grant that they didn't think would work for them. But going through all the eligibility of it, we thought, actually, we could switch to this and you're going to be able to do it on your own and much better for you. So it's having that understanding of what you're doing, speaking to people, having a look at what's out there. We're scanning what grants are available all the time. As I say, we've just got to make sure that it fits into one of the niche competitions that come out to make it worthwhile going on. But yes, I would have I would look at everything for funding at different stages.
I think you spoke to it a bit, but like I guess there's a difference between grants and investment in terms of how it would influence the direction of your product. Like I guess for grants there's like stricter entry criteria, but maybe investors would want more say in the direction of your product. Is that right?
So if you can get a grant, what normally a grant would do is take you out of that early development to give you something that is then a prototype that an investor will understand and can see the commercialization of it. So a grant won't give you commercialisation. A grant will just take you from TRL 3 to 6, not to commercialisation. So you would strategically run them, well, actually, I can get a grant at this stage, gives me to this level, now an investor will talk to me, even an angel investor. It's depending on the scale of the product and what you're doing, they may now say, well, actually, the moment that risk is going, we haven't quite got to commercialisation, or it's not the final product, but I'll invest in you because you've had some money elsewhere. And yes, you might have to put 30% of it in, but you've had 70% of it free. So yeah, if you are eligible for a grant and you can find one to fit you, and you've got that much funding, take it.
Okay, interesting.
So you get a grant and for whatever reason the business fails, what's the liability?
There's no liability. That's why they're really so once upon a time with grants, you could just talk about the technology. Now they want to understand the business model and the financial model. So having to have some help around that financial side of it is really important. So you're marked just as highly on that side as you are on the technical side to try and mitigate the risk of the grants. But yes, you don't have to pay it back, and it doesn't go down as a debt to you. It's not like you're taking forward. So yeah, there's no risk there.
I think I've got a weird question. I'm wondering, do you look at grants on the horizon, and the thing that I'm thinking about is the current desire for Europe to have more sovereign security for reasons, and I wonder if there's going to be more active grants in the area of defense or technological security, because obviously a lot of our world is run by large technological conglomerates that are based in one area in another country.
Yeah, and maybe other ones that are going to have an embassy on our doorstep. Yes, there is. And again, so the industrial strategy came out a while ago, and now the grants are all catching up to try and fit into that. But there is a pattern. So yes, it's sometimes good to keep an eye on that pattern. Getting involved with Innovate, it used to be called Innovate Edge, but Innovate Connect, those sort of areas as well will have some information, and sometimes they can give you quite a lot of free help and advice as well if they like what you're doing. So yeah, just keeping, again, it's right, getting yourself in with a range of different people that can give you the help. But yes, I do see a lot coming down on the defence side of things. I don't know if that's an industrial strategy, because I don't remember what that is.
There is quite a lot going on with defence at the moment, I've noticed. And I'd also say make sure you're as ready as you can be, and the business is in the best position possible for any type of funding. But with grant funding, you have a specific window in which to submit the application. I think the average time to put an application together is something like 70 hours, so it takes a lot of work. So the better position you can be in, and the stronger understanding of your numbers and things like that, is just going to make it much easier when the opportunity does come up.
Oh, going to go to one behind, and then I'll come to. I don't know how I differentiate everybody. The man with the beard. Yeah, the man with the longer beard.
You mentioned about soft skills. That's probably one area that I personally struggle with. Where would you say I would need to go to look at improving them? Whether that's talking, customer interaction, investor pitching, for example.
Accelerator groups.
Have a chat with me.
Yeah, definitely accelerator groups. That's what they're designed to help with. Really worthwhile doing that sort of thing.
I imagine there's quite a few tech people in the room. Would you say that a number of technical people would struggle in certain areas, or
I think everybody struggles with numbers and finance. I think a lot of people struggle with how to market themselves and putting themselves out there. And I even know from just where we work, I have loads of people that are client facing. You ask them to stand up in front of a room, completely panic. So yeah, it's a tough skill. It's one worth, they're going to buy from you. So it's a skill that you need to work out how to conquer and do.
Thank you.
grants can be quite difficult to get. I mean, you know, they're competitive. There's a lot of information you've got to give them, and more frequently they're aligned with larger government goals rather than a particular sector.
Yeah.
So, is it really viable for tech companies to go for these grants, or isn't the better option just to go straight for the investments, like target a VC or a PE instead?
Don't go straight to PEVC. Go to angel first.
Sorry,
Yeah.
step beyond the angel.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of how many people that I speak to that are IT, AI, big tech, quantum, all of that is in the industrial strategy. It depends what your output is affecting and doing. So
The grant's quite small. I mean, you know, quantum's going to take a few billion. 50 grand is not going to help.
no, so 50 grand your local authority, but the grants out there, I've got people who are working collaboration with others when they're working on a 10 million grant. So the money's out there if you're doing something that is really sort of that sort of blue sky and needs that level of investment to get it technically ready, not to get it commercialised, which is where some of the VE type of stuff, VC, PE type of money comes into place. But I would keep looking. It's really easy to, Talitha's not a developer, but you've managed to get ChatGPT to do a little scan for you and give you some of the grant information. I'll just keep an eye on what's out there. If you see something that's coming down and looking, if you think you're going to need a grant, have a chat with us and we'll keep a bit of an eye open for you. But you've got to understand exactly how much you need. You've got to have all your housekeeping in place, because when it comes available, you need to be putting that application in and making sure it's done properly. So the amount of times everybody says, there's a grant, it closes in 2 weeks. Tell me how much money I need to be asking for and what I need to do. And at that point, it's too late. You're nowhere near ready. But I would still have a look at a grant if you can.
Yeah, I can think of an example of a lady who's built an educational app, and she, I think she won several grants. She applied for 12, got 7 over a period of time. And she did work with Business Connect, and she had someone who was supporting her from there. And she also said it's kind of started to get easier the more applications she did, because you learn what assessors are looking for and how to communicate, again, what you've built in a way that resonates with the people who are assessing it. So I think it is a viable option.
Yeah. There's the question here.
Yeah, I noticed there was no mention of like crowdfunding. I wonder if you see that fitting in this, or if you don't think it's particularly viable.
So I did have it up on the slide, sort of that early stage just after bootstrapping.
Right.
And I do know a business who has really successfully crowdfunded. It takes a lot of work. You've really they've got to find you. So you've really got to promote yourself. I think I was speaking to somebody the other day about it. So if you're going to do that, you need to make yourself visible. You need to tell your story, because they've got to buy into it. You don't have to give them everything that you're doing. Normally also, if they're crowdfunding, they may want a piece of it afterwards. So I think during the COVID, I did some crowdfunding for people that was making some masks with filters, and everybody gets one of these afterwards. I crowdfunded with a lady who was doing these herbal tea bags, or this new range. So we got tea bags at the end of it.
Right.
So they're going to want something in return.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a lot of hard work.
I think if you had like a big social following or something like that, it would be much easier.
Yeah. Yeah. But they're buying you, and they're buying your passion, or investing in you and your passion, but they want something in return.
There's one more.
Yeah. Actually, my question about product what you build, like production about your product, right? Like a copyright concept.
Yeah.
So as we are a developer, right? Let's assume somebody have MVP and somebody get the grant from the government or somebody else. So when MVP goes in the market, in these days AI is in the market, and somebody copy your product, doing some tweaks, some changes, or add some new module in the product. So in this case, like my MVP may be totally useless. So how I can explain about how I can explain to the government, like, I'm not able to survive because big giant copied my idea, just did create some tweaks. So this could be because literally with the cursor AI, we can copy the whole product within 1 hour or within 2 days. It's true.
Yeah.
In this phase, like how
it is hard.
Yeah.
The UK is rubbish for patenting software. A lot of people that I speak to go and do it in America, and it's only there as a defense. Most of the time you can't actually, if one of the big boys copy it, even though you've got a patent, you're not going to defend it. You can't afford to do it. Yeah. When you're talking about your tech to people, though, so I have a few people saying, I don't want to be talking about what I'm doing. You're only telling them the concept and what you're getting. You're not telling them how you're doing it. But IP is always going to be a struggle and an issue. And you're in the most fastest moving area of technology all the time. So it is always going to be a problem, and there isn't an answer for it.
Yeah.
I can throw something in there because I advise a lot of startups on the tech side.
Yeah.
Basically, even the American patent system, they won't let you patent an idea. It's the execution of that idea that's patentable. So your best defense is actually staying ahead of the other guy.
Yeah, that's it.
Because you can't actually, it's whoever innovates the fastest and builds the best features. It's not the actual, it's not the idea, it's the ability to execute and build on that idea that's got value.
Yeah, we can do that much. Thank you.
Are we easily into pub time now?
Yeah.
Don't worry, we are always late, and today we're just, keeping the party. Any more questions to Samantha and Talitha? No? Thank you very much, Dan.
Thank you.